what a special day it is. Monday, October 3rd, I think. 1 p.m. Central, 11 Pacific, 2 Eastern. Y'all, we have a very fun show today. I'm sure you've noticed on the channel, we like to do these forum-style conversations where we have more than one guest. And today, boy, oh boy, do we have the creme de la creme. I'm not French. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly, but maybe we have somebody on the panel who can. Please welcome Alexandra Merz, and from sunny California, the best duo in finance, okay? Ross Gerber and Gary Black. Thank you all very much for joining. Very excited to have y'all here with me. Welcome. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate y'all. Absolutely. So we'll get started with
together. We literally you called us the best duo in finance, and we started off with like perfect harmony. Thank you.
There you go. Of course. So now we're gonna we'll just get right in. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. Obviously, a lot has happened in the world of not just finance, but like Tesla specifically here. So I'll pose the question to the panel. Maybe we'll just get started with Alexandra and then take her from there. Deliveries Q3 for Tesla on Sunday, I believe yesterday, right around noontime, my time. They were released. Production about 360,000. Deliveries was 344,000. It was a miss versus the market expectation. There's a lot of chatter out there about how this and the long-term trajectory of Tesla maybe not a big deal. Short-term, it could be a big deal because of different factors, but that's something we'll get into. Maybe we'll take ladies first. Alexandra, if you want to kick us off with a discussion, what you think of the results, and then we'll pass it around and see what the rest of the panel thinks.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Well, first of all, your French was perfect. Thank you very much, Father.
Thank you.
And then second, I think we should explain to everybody we were late because we were discussing Ross's eye color matching the background, right? I mean, there's a whole thing going on about Ross's blues.
Oh, Alexandra.
we get into that. You also notice that there's a book now in the back with him on it. So we're not having any ego problems here today. But to get to it. So yes, the delivery numbers were obviously lower than we expected, which for me was a bit of a letdown. Not really because, there can be 20,000 cars delivered a couple of days or weeks later. That's not an issue. What I really didn't like is the communication around it, which probably will bring us later to the subject whether there should improve still communication at Tesla. I don't see why hyping up the numbers with these analyst averages and all that when you know that this is going to be a miss. Why not announce a little bit earlier this whole China delays? I'm sure Gary and Ross are more knowledgeable about why this happened. It did happen. I don't think it's a big thing. It's just a blip in history of Tesla. We'll probably forget about it in a couple of weeks. But I do believe communication around it should have been better.
What do you gentlemen think?
I don't know if I don't know if they even really knew, how Tesla operates. I don't think they really know that much into the future, exactly what's going to happen every week, unfortunately. But that said, I think that, there's this typical like magnifying effect of every short-term thing, and every little hiccup that Tesla has becomes some sort of like well-discussed issue when they, bottom line, had records across the board, deliveries, record production, which is, I think, the most important factor that people aren't talking about, is during one of the toughest periods of time for supply chain, where every other car company is struggling to make cars. Tesla made plenty of cars, and it turned out their biggest issue was getting them to the right place at the last minute, which is typical Tesla. So I just don't see why anybody's making anything more about it than necessary,
So here's my issue, and here's, I think, what a lot of people in the market today are saying. Obviously, Tesla's down 8% and the market's up 2%, because people are worrying this is not a supply issue where there's logistical issues that need to be fixed. I think a lot of people are saying, okay, that's the excuse they came up with after the fact. But when you look at what actually happened, and I was complaining to Ross, it's probably the worst day I've had from a performance standpoint since I started, because it's such a big position and it's down 8%. We knew back in around the 15th or 16th that they started discounting in China, and they offered an 8,000 yuan discount. Not a big number.
How much dollars is that?
1,200.
$1,200.
Yeah.
It's not a big number, but it's a discount. And the punchline is they did it because they probably saw they had a lot of production coming on, and they needed to move product, and you had to basically take delivery by the end of the month. And they kind of couched it, well, if you buy Tesla insurance, you get this discount off a car. Okay, fine. Then we saw that normally the last month of the quarter, all the production goes to the local sales. But this time around, they started exporting out around the 21st. Normally they start exporting out the 27th, 28th, which gets counted in the next quarter. So they always do this every quarter. They start shipping out toward the end of the quarter, and it doesn't count once they satisfy all the local demand. And that must have been the tell. It should have been the tell to us that they didn't have enough local demand to soak up the inventory, because they started shipping out exports around the 21st.
Yes, but also, Gary, remember, they've increased production pretty dramatically this quarter in China. So like there is a possibility that they just weren't able to get the cars in China to where they need to be, even in China. It was easier to just load them on a boat and send them to Hertz or whatever.
Yeah, that looks good. And it sounds good. It's in transit. But the problem was, we always hear, well, it's a capacity constraint. There's always more people who want to buy cars than there is capacity. We hear that all the time. And I always scoff that, say, you guys aren't looking at the demand side of the equation. You're looking at the supply side, and you can't just look at supply. You got to look at demand. And what happened in China, we believe, is there's a lot of thought that that Tesla's going to have to discount the price, particularly of the standard Model Y, which is above the 300,000 yuan threshold, at which you get an additional 12,000 subsidy. And so a lot of Chinese folks are ashamed if they get, quote unquote, ripped off, as they say. Somebody told me that today, and I thought that was a good quote, because they want to be able to get a deal, and they want to be able to say they got a deal.
What is the subsidy level in China where you get the discount when you say
it's 300,000,
which
the short range,
which is how
Model 3 gets it. It's 40,000.
But not the Y.
So the Y isn't even close to.
It is. It's 310. So I'm talking about the standard Model Y.
Okay.
So all they had to do was reduce the price of Model Y by about 5%, and they would have been at the 300. But somebody made the decision that rather than do that, they would play around with this 8,000 yuan discount if you buy insurance, and that didn't work. And then sometime around the 21st, they said, you know what, this isn't working. Let's get this stuff out of here. And that's when they started exporting it out. And then hence you have an excuse that says, okay, we have logistics issues. And look, I'm not a cynic. It's our largest position, but I do think that somebody screwed up, and they thought that they could sell the product, and they didn't. And when they realized they didn't, they had to ship it out. And now it's in transit, so it doesn't count as a delivery. So will it come back in the fourth quarter? Yes. But the problem is China demand, because people are still waiting for a price cut, is potentially going to be bad in the fourth quarter as well. And that's the challenge. And I think that's what the market is telling us today, that this may not be a one quarter issue, that the fourth quarter may also be light because of China volumes.
Yeah. And I think that's Gary's premise right now, is that demand in China is being affected, which we all know China's in a recession. So obviously when there's a recession, there's a certain amount of limited demand. But that said, I don't know, that's just conjecture. We don't really know for sure. What I do think, which I do think is a possibility, is that as they've been ramping vehicles also in Germany and Austin, that also creates transit strains. And so I just think it's the typical Tesla, where they kind of what you're saying. It's like they get to somebody messes up, and you got all these cars, and then they're juggling, because it's not really, when you make almost 400,000 cars and you've got 20, it's a small percentage of the overall
6%
right
excess.
So I think we're being super micro analytical about a record quarter for Tesla, and obviously we have expectations, and so you say, okay, I'm going to knock 10% off the value of the entire company because of this expectation, and I think that's an opportunity for investors. I think it's an overreaction.
Did you revise your expectations for fourth quarter deliveries? Does that change your view on fourth quarter deliveries?
No, I didn't touch mine. I think that people will, because I've been traveling, but I think people will take their fourth quarter numbers down, and I don't know if it's 50%, but a good chunk of analysts will assume that this is a problem in China that's not being resolved. If they had just cut price about the 15th of September, they would have, basically matched supply and demand. I believe that. But because they didn't, now they're kind of stuck, and they don't.
Yeah, but they probably didn't want to cut price.
And they don't have a lot of, demand, right? Not demand. They don't have a lot of open orders right now where they can basically say, okay, we have all this spillover from third quarter into fourth quarter. And that's the challenge. They're basically working with no wait. You can get on the website right now in China and get a car in a week or two. So the challenge is you don't.
So where are your expectations? Where are your expectations for Q4 between 450 and 500? Where are you?
I'm at about 440, but
for deliveries.
Yeah.
Oh, you're below.
Yeah, so that would be a great quarter. That would be awesome.
But it's all
I mean,
relative.
it would be the best quarter, but I mean, did you see that Reuters article last week, which speculated on 495? Do you think that was just a natural article, or was it seeded?
Who knows? Tesla doesn't communicate very well, as we know. And
Well, they don't communicate at all.
If Tesla wanted to put out guidance, they could have done so, but they chose not to. So I'm not sure, if I want to believe a Reuters article, and especially that journalist who I spoke to before, where we've had before issues where, like the thing a couple of months ago, where she saw a document that we didn't see a document to, and it made the stock go down. Then remember that was a couple months ago.
I mean, I don't know how they get to that number, as far as just from a production and delivery standpoint. So you got 20,000 extra cars you can add on to your numbers for Q4, but then you got to look at production for Q4. So, I tend to just go with Gary's numbers because I think Gary's better than all the rest of them at figuring this out. That said, I mean, if they're really going to deliver 440,000 cars in Q4, like, why would you sell the stock? Like,
you shouldn't sell the stock.
Right.
I agree. See,
so why are you beating yourself up, Gary?
So I'm beating myself up because I hate having bad performance.
Well, yeah, but it's because of Tesla.
I get it.
It's like, Michael Jordan had a bad game, so the Bulls suck now. I mean, it's like, it is what it is.
Let's look at the positives. The positives are, you probably have to cut your earnings number for third quarter by about 6-7 cents a share. So the street's going to bring their estimates down 6-7 cents.
So what do you have them for the quarter?
So I was at about $1.12. Now I'll bring it down to $1.05. The street was at $1.07. They'll bring it down to $1 if they're doing the math right. Some of them may not ever revise anything.
Yeah, but what about the more Model X and S sales, which I think you've got to factor in? I don't think they held those cars.
That wasn't.
It's extra 1,000.
That wasn't a delta versus what was in.
No, but in margin.
Models.
In margin.
I'm just saying that wasn't a miss. Okay, if you miss, you got to take your numbers down, and the street's going to take their earn. This is a good thing, Ross.
No, but do you think that they have the mix correct?
I don't know. I mean, at this point, I believe somewhat that the average Chinese consumer said, I want a deal. There's a lot of rumors in the marketplace that they're going to cut their price. They saw this 2-week promotion where they were getting, roughly a 2.5% discount if they bought some insurance. And they jumped to the conclusion, well, they're going to have to take prices down further. So I'm going to wait. And I don't know if you got 50,000 people like that, 100,000 people like that, but you got a lot of people that once they take the price down, and that's the question, will they fix the situation? Or the people in Tesla China, or maybe it's Elon, so stubborn that they say, we're not going to take prices down, even though we have this mismatch of production, which is going to continue to grow, and demand. So if you got these people waiting for a price cut, do you give them the price cut, or do you say, no, we're not going to do that?
Well, because they would sell the car somewhere else, right? Because they would put the car on a ship and sell it somewhere else.
That's right.
Do the math, Alexandra. We're talking about the largest EV market.
You always tell me that. Do the math. I do the math.
But you're not doing the math. If you're saying just ship them somewhere else, where are you going to take 150,000?
You ship them to Europe.
Hold on. 150,000 are supposed to be bought in China. Okay. So where are you going to take 150,000 and you're going to send them to? You might send 20 somewhere, or 30 or 50. But you don't have 150 you can just hide somewhere.
No, that's a lot of cars. But I'm just saying, I don't think demand is zero in China.
It's not. But if you got people waiting for a price cut, though, and look, Tesla has lowered prices before. I went back, Model 3, they lowered 4 times in the last 3 years. Now, I don't think they've ever lowered price on Model Y. But when you have a mismatch between the product, as Ross said, you're ramping up your factory, you're trying to be as efficient and as productive as you can, and you're not sure what the demand is, sometimes you got to take a temporary price cut to just get the demand and supply back.
Well, and we'll have the same issue. We'll have the same issue in January in the United States, right? Because then we get into the 7,500 tax credit here. So we will have to revisit prices here beginning of January too. So this is just the first prelude to a couple of. But the thing is then operating margin on the cars will go lower. We'll see it below 30% range.
They're getting some cost efficiencies from supply chain that they were paying more from, a couple months back. So Elon's already mentioned that. So I wouldn't be surprised to see price cuts without losing margin. I think, in general, people have been paying top dollar to suppliers to get stuff for the last 3 to 6 months. And that's completely reversed now. So we're not seeing any of these shipping and commodities issues that we saw really just 3 months ago. So I don't know how that passes through on their actual cost structure. And that's why I'm not that concerned about margins either, because I don't know what it cost them to make the cars this quarter either. And I think maybe people are over exaggerating the costs. So I tend to be more bullish anyways by nature, which is, I guess, why I like hanging out with Gary, because he evens me out. Yeah, he evens me out a little bit. But I think that we tend to make a lot of, this is a long conversation about a few cars. You know what I mean? And I think in the end, Tesla delivered a record amount of cars, didn't they? Like, any way you look at the math.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, look,
So let's just end on that note and get into questions.
Okay. On a positive side, we'll get earnings the week of the 19th. They will probably beat the lowered expectations. And then we will have S&P, hopefully, if they're doing their jobs, after they've waited for a year, will upgrade Tesla to an investment grade rating.
Even though they have no debt.
No debt. But I think they will. And then, I still have the Twitter ordeal kind of out there. It's definitely an overhang on the stock, and
it's an overhang on Elon for sure.
If they can settle this, and I still don't think Elon's going to go to trial because I think he would lose. I think if they settle before the trial, that will be a lift from the stock, and that'll help. And then we got Cybertruck next year, which both Ross and I have ordered. We're both waiting for. That's a huge positive for next year. There's not going to be much cannibalization of Cybertruck versus everything else. So I think that's hugely incremental.
You didn't mention they're making a robot.
We're not at the robot.
Well, we're getting to the robot.
Yeah. I love how you like, 5-year out existential valuations, like Robotaxi, and Gary and I are on the same page with our Robotaxi valuations. But that said, this is the most incredible company in the stock market. Come on. You want to do a whole hour show talking about any other stock right now? No. There's no other company worthy of it.
And look,
that's actually a question we had. Is there any other stock that you would feel comfortable holding the way you feel comfortable about holding Tesla? I mean, I know you have 30 other stock in your portfolios, but is any single one able to come to the same threshold that you have the Tesla stock at?
Yeah, I think Google, which is our second largest position, would be something I could hold for years because it's got a great fundamental business and it's cheap. I think the problem with Tesla, it's not a cheap stock.
Right.
I mean, even using street estimates, it's trading at about 45 times next year's earnings. On my estimates, trading like 35 times earnings.
Right.
But it's got a beta of 1.6. So you got to be rewarded for that extra risk. It's a tough stock to own as your largest position.
What's your estimate for next year?
I'm at $8 in the streets.
You're at 8? Jeez,
Yeah.
I was just figuring 6.
The street's at 6. So
yeah. This stock is cheap then, Gary. I don't know what you're talking about. You got $8 on this stock and it's trading $250.
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's nothing.
Growing volumes 50% to the sky.
There are not growth stocks that I can see that have 40 to 50% volume growth, let alone 40 to 50% earnings growth, trading at 33 times earnings. That's a peg of less than 1.
And remember, the deepest moat I can think of too. I mean, there's nobody close to Tesla.
If I could ask
Now,
one question.
You said Google. Did you hear anything about those rumors that Tesla was approaching?
So Google, you're not concerned about their ad business?
But it's cyclical. If we're in a recession, you're right. The ad business.
No, but like competition,
drops.
like Amazon is going after Google in a very meaningful way. And I know this business very well. And Amazon's ad business is growing very rapidly and targeted right at Google. It's literally right at them.
Look, it's got search, and I agree there's competition, but Google was first, and Google's got the best product. And
I search on Amazon more than I search on Google.
Really? Okay, well, good for you.
They got the cloud business, which is, it's a very good business. And I think, look, at the end of the day, you got to go back to valuation. If I can buy a stock that's growing its revenues and earnings at 15% a year and it's trading for 15 times, I'll do that. And it's got a beta of 1, which means
I agree. I mean, I own Google too.
I'll do that every day.
Listen, I own Google too, and I like Google. I'm just saying it's a boring company. They have not.
Boring? Okay.
Yeah, it's boring.
You know people who watch YouTube?
Yeah. It's boring. It's the same YouTube. It's been the same YouTube. Yes, I watch YouTube. I think we're on YouTube.
There you go.
That's not the point. Is YouTube growing rapidly?
Yes.
Well, we'll see. They've got a lot of competition now.
But search, they don't have a lot of competition.
No, they don't. But I think there's people after them, and I think that's something to consider. That said, I like Google, and I think the valuation is ridiculously cheap, but I don't find the same comfort in that I do in Tesla.
Yeah. So back to your question, Alexandra, is there another stock we could talk about for an hour that would keep people's interest? Absolutely not.
No.
Tesla is multifaceted, very, very colorful CEO who's always, doing crazy stuff. And we could talk about Tesla forever. To be honest, we could probably do 3 hours on Tesla.
Yeah, let's get into questions. I want to hear some of these questions. You have this whole list of questions people had for you, Alexandra, and since you have us,
go ahead.
Yeah, I actually had one. I wanted to drill a little bit deeper on the margin question. So one of the things that Elon tweeted on not too long ago was around the Fed was going a little too fast on raising rates, and I'm assuming he's saying that because in the supply chain that he sees that now they have this massive supply chain in Tesla. I'm guessing the signal there was that, hey, we're seeing deflation happening and our costs are coming down dramatically, which one would think would then dramatically increase their margins. How do you guys think about that mechanism playing into the next, like, say, Q3 and Q4? And do you think that's going to be material enough to impact the stock price, especially versus what the market might be expecting? Let me know if that question makes sense.
Well, that was what I was saying earlier, that I don't think we know what their cost structure was in Q2, because I think in Q3, because it changed a lot from the beginning of the quarter to the end of the quarter. So I've seen this in a lot of the businesses that I work with in the last 3 months, where what they were looking at 3 months ago is very different than what their cost structure is today, and in a positive way. Most of the companies I've talked to have no intention of lowering prices despite this, and they're actually making more margin. That said, I think as we were just discussing, it's in Tesla's advantage to be competitive on price and to pass on cost savings versus trying to expand margins by lowering prices and being competitive in areas like China, if that's what they need to do. So I think this has affected Tesla, but I think there are other costs that increased during this period of time, like, let's say, shipping, and we'll see if they change the margins, like spent a little more in one area because they save money in this, or whether they absolutely cut costs on a whole. And more likely, they probably didn't gain much margin this quarter, I don't think.
See, the challenge is labor is a big chunk of their cost structure, and labor's sticky. Labor's not going down,
and it's not going down.
And you got an unemployment rate of 3.6, 3.7. And especially where Tesla's located, there's huge demand for labor.
Yeah.
So I don't see that changing anytime soon. I agree with Elon that inflation has peaked, and Ross and I were arguing about this before. And the Fed is being crazy at raising rates so aggressively. It's going to raise rates another 125 basis points between now and the end of the year. And then you get to next year, they're going to realize that we're in recession because they've created this recession. And at that point, you're going to see them start either taking rates down, or at least talking rates down. Maybe they'll talk it down, but not actually do it themselves. And so I agree that there's going to be some margin expansion. You just have to weigh that against it. Tesla's got a new product coming out next year, Cybertruck. It's not going to be that efficient as they make it. They're still ramping up 2 new factories,
right,
which are not optimally producing cars yet. And the margins are not anywhere near. In fact, they're probably still losing money, what they are in Fremont and in Shanghai. So I've got some, I wouldn't call it aggressive margin expansion, but decent margin expansion in the next couple years. But that's not why I own the stock. I own the stock because EV adoption around the world is still surging, and it's 10% this year. I've got it at 36% by 2026, 42% by 2027, and 60% by 2030. If you try to figure what the compound growth rate of that, if they just hold their share, it's like 40%.
Yeah.
And I go back to, I can't find growth stocks growing volumes at 40%. Selling at 35 times earnings. There's nothing.
Like that's the argument.
That's the investment thesis.
That's the argument.
And you just have to ignore all the noise. To your point, Alexandra, about there's going to be a quarter that they miss volumes like this one, or Elon's going to do something crazy, and you just have to ignore it.
Yeah, and it's been like this for the last 8 years, and
always. Exactly. Now let me get to my question, because I just don't like having something unanswered. Did you hear about that Tesla Google rumors today? Is that something that inspires you, or is that just crap again?
I didn't see what it was about. Did you? Did you guys see what it was?
No, it was just this one headline.
Yeah, somebody look it up, because I know that they're very close. And I know that Google's working very hard on autonomous software. And, I don't know how well it works. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for the two companies to work together. That said, it might be more around search in the Tesla car, where, Google and data and search can all come together in the Tesla.
My first thought was like, isn't that a surprise given the spectacular? I mean, I found it spectacular, and I'm sure any people in the AI sphere found it spectacular. AI presentation, right? If Google is not there yet and sees the bot and sees the potential of the Tesla bot, because they will never get into manufacturing, I just thought that could coincide quite well, right? Where
they owned Boston Dynamics for a while too. Didn't Google buy?
But now it's Hyundai.
Yeah, but they owned them for a while, so they obviously had an interest in this area.
Exactly.
And so
they're still doing self-driving cars,
right? And so there's no question that
they're going nowhere, right? Did you hear those self-driving cars from Google? They're going nowhere, right?
Yeah, they're not very good. But that said, I think that would give a lot of incentive for Google to look at that. What does it say? So to be exploring a potential partnership.
Yeah, so I haven't been able to find like an actual concrete. So I'm like the Jamie of Joe Rogan right now, but I couldn't find anything. Yeah.
I don't think it's something that's going to move Tesla stock at any time soon, unless it was flushed
unless
out.
like Google took a stake and
maybe that would help, but I don't.
Doesn't Google have tons of cash?
Yeah, and
weren't we just talking about they're just relying on selling garbage videos to kids and
garbage?
Have you watched YouTube?
You mean kids watch, just like your kids watch.
Horrible. Horrible. There's 25%
on YouTube right now.
YouTube is amazing. 25% of YouTube is amazing. 25% of YouTube, okay, fine. 50% of YouTube is a garbage hole of content.
But a lot of it is like if you miss something. So let's suppose I didn't get to go to church this week. I can get online and watch my church service on YouTube, which I couldn't do.
Absolutely.
That's a change.
Trying to take away the utility of YouTube.
No, and the YouTube has as a sense, but it's by far not perfect. I do believe there is a video. I mean, the commenting on YouTube is still very bad. The whole interaction, I think, it's still crap. I mean, it is what it is, and it's good, but there's still a lot to improve.
Nevertheless, if Google got involved with Tesla, I would think that would be very beneficial for Google.
Probably.
Yeah. True.
Probably.
Yeah, I think just based on the research I did, it's just a rumor that's just gaining some steam.
Listen, she was in house arrest. Credit Suisse is going bankrupt. These rumors in Twitter, it's like, Elon's trying to take over the company to get rid of rumors, and they took over him. You know what I mean?
And I mean, Google is 174,000 employees, if I remember right? So this is a big machine. Having a good coherence with Tesla.
Offices, by the way, they probably have 42 empty office buildings as well.
Exactly, which brings us to the whole subject of back to work, right?
Google's up 5.5% today, while Tesla's down 8%.
Well, I'm glad I own Google too. Isn't that good news?
Yeah.
In Google,
the market's going up today, and nobody will buy Tesla. The market's going up. They don't want this cancerous Tesla stock because they only hit a record delivery number, and it wasn't good enough.
They missed estimates.
I'm going to sell. That's like, seriously, whatever. No comment.
It is. So let's get to AI Day. How did you like AI Day?
I think we should ask Gary first, because Gary's opinion and mine I'm almost sure will be different.
Look, I think
so too.
you have to believe in hope here that because they were able to take a car and get it to almost self-drive, they should be able to get a robot to do more than just
to make burgers,
than just walk and wave, which is all it could do. And look, they started from scratch, 10, 12 months ago. So look, I'm a believer that they will get much further along. And given the portability of the technology from, self-driving cars to robots, I think they'll make a good robot. I just don't know what it's going to look like. And if I'm an institutional investor, I'm not putting it into my valuation model for Tesla until you show me that it works. So it's a similar idea to with robotaxi. If it doesn't fully work, meaning I can't curl up into the backseat of a car and read a book while the car is driving itself, I can't put a valuation on robotaxi until I see that this thing actually can do more than, walk a couple steps and wave. I can't put additional valuation. Do I believe they'll get somewhere in 3 to 5 years? Absolutely. They'll make it much better. It'll be useful. As Elon said, the latency will be improved. The dexterity will be improved. And at that point, it'll be a useful robot, and I'm sure it'll be worth something. But today, I can't put a valuation on it because I'd be making up numbers. I'd just be, choosing.
I'm going to make one up for you.
Go ahead, do it.
Go ahead.
250 billion. So I came up with
250 billion. What?
Because you told me to make up a number. So if Tesla's worth about $1 trillion today, in my mind, okay, and Tesla produces, let's say, 2 million cars a year run rate in its current capability. Okay. And then you extrapolate out, like maybe they could make maybe a couple 100,000 robots a year in the next 5 or 10 years. Couple 100,000 a year.
And what about the demand side, which is more important?
I think the demand side will be unlimited because
it's just wave and walk.
Well, I would be happy.
You can water plants.
Yeah. No, think about it from McDonald's. So in California, they just passed a law that said if you work at a fast food restaurant, minimum wage is now $22 an hour. And McDonald's is like, you're insane. Like, how are we going to run a McDonald's? We're just going to buy robots. And so if you look at an assembly line, actually I watched a YouTube video about how to make a burger at McDonald's. My kid was watching this garbage, and I noticed right away that a robot could easily replace probably 50% of McDonald's workers. So when you think about the efficiency of having a robot making burgers in the back versus humans, it's like day and night. McDonald's would put their first order in for 20,000 for sure.
But that's
for sure.
You're thinking about it versus there's no proof it can do it.
It will be able to do it.
But what about the robotaxi?
I'll tell you why. Because the robotaxi is super hard. And I think what they figured out was that they started with the hardest goal. The hardest goal you could imagine is driving back to your hotel in Santa Monica right now, okay, sober. And then, you think out and you go, cutting meat is easy.
You're right.
It's
about
easy.
that.
It is. Ironing, cleaning.
Most things are easy.
Right.
And I think they realized the opposite. Why are we solving the hardest thing first when we could actually solve this now because we've already built technology that almost works?
So how do you
we have the brain. We have the brain now.
I figure if they can really make a product out of this, it will sell, and they will sell several 100,000 of them a year in the first couple of years. And then if they're, let's say, more like $50,000 each is what I'm thinking, there's substantial revenue there. You can do all the math. You're the math guy.
Farzad, you did a spreadsheet about, what people want to do with this. Tell us.
So you got a calculation on it.
I did
assume it's going to work, and you're going to have to assume that
nobody
else has done the same thing. You're assuming you're from a production
Absolutely.
side, you're saying they can produce it.
Yep.
But you're assuming that A, there's going to be demand for this, and B, nobody else is going to be able to do what Tesla's doing.
Yep. I'm
right?
assuming all of that. That is correct.
Well, that may be true, but I want to see that first.
I get you. That's the difference between me and you. I believe you want to see. I get that. I've done this with Steve Jobs, and I'm doing it with Elon. Whatever they see, I don't believe I see as clearly. Okay. They're here, and every time thought I knew what was next, I was wrong. And so I just think he's further along with this than we fully get. And I believe.
If I can throw in my 2 cents here. So the thing that really strikes me, so the topic around the bot has certain use cases that are objectively much easier than driving, I think rings very true to me. So one that seems like an extremely low-hanging fruit is moving things from point A to point B, right? So when I worked in a warehouse setting, just picking, staging product, loading trucks, and UPS and FedEx, you think about how much of the economy. Yeah, exactly. So these things seem to be extremely, quote unquote, simple things to solve from the perspective of building a bot, especially if you've already invested a lot of money in the compute power and the infrastructure. You got the Dojo chip, and I get it. A lot of these use cases still haven't been. You got everything, right? Cameras, you got everything you need. And you think about the material costs.
This was easier. I think they just realized this was actually easier than what they're trying to do.
You're right.
Yeah. But I'll tell you the thing that really caught me about the whole thing. Look at the way they described how they would build the robot. See, this is what convinced me. Not all this fancy tech. Was the way that I think they said they broke down into 27 main functions of body movement. And, that's why I've been saying the robot will never be able to play guitar because it's just too hard. And so if you think about, moving in certain simple, directional, and then use manufacturing, I believe they can manufacture these things with their manufacturing capabilities and that it would have this extra strength and ability. But when you think about driving, today, humans all over America will die driving, and there'll be lots of accidents. So even with all of our training and traffic things and skills and driver assist, a lot of people are going to die today driving. And so even humans with 50 or 20 or 30 years of practice still die every day on the road. So this is a very, very challenging goal to drive flawlessly through a major city. And so I just think robots are easy compared to this.
I agree.
I have a question for Gary. Gary, within this context, if Tesla gets closer to solving full self-driving and they get to a point where it appears like they're, call it 99% of the way there, and the finish line is obvious, do you think that gives you an ability to then model the bot, or do you need to see something else? I'm just curious to see it from your approach and how you would tackle that. And if FSD completion would in any way persuade you to think about the bot in the future.
Look, I think Russ is right. Driving, because it involves so many different, senses and judgments
and variables.
And you're relying on other people to drive correctly. If that's a hard thing to accomplish. And so I'm more cynical, I think, about that. And look, everybody's working on it, and it's back to competition is, also trying to do the same thing. And some are at different levels, and they're doing it from a different strategy. Some are geofencing it in one area, and then they'll expand it to other areas. Whereas, Tesla's trying to do it, across the whole country at once, or across the whole world at once. So yeah, if they can get a robo-taxi type product in place where, again, I can climb in the back seat and go to sleep and let the car drive it myself, then I think I'd be
Would you go to sleep in a regular taxi?
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I was scared to death with a regular taxi driver,
Well, especially here in LA, I guess.
Well, that's what I'm saying about how the standard is so much higher for a robo-taxi than a regular taxi. Because I can tell you, if you go today, if you just, and I doubt you'll order a regular taxi, by the way.
A regular taxi here, by the way.
Right. That's true. But like, if you get in a regular taxi in LA, there's no way you feel comfortable with that driver.
Who's driving that taxi?
Yeah, right. Well, he's a guy who just came from Moscow yesterday. He didn't want to serve, and now he's an Uber driver making $52 an hour in
back
LA.
To your question, would I believe? Again, it's the demand side is definitely there. I believe that there's demand for these type robots. What I don't know enough about is, who else is doing what, because I haven't really studied
in the robot business.
Yeah, and who's in front of? I mean, everybody talked about Boston Dynamics. Boston Dynamics is 30 years ahead of them. And their robots are, more about,
dancing dogs. That's all I think of.
And, I've seen they carry stuff, but I don't.
You mean they've been doing it for 30 years, not 30 years ahead of them, because what they're presenting is not at all the same reproducible product at large scale, at an ideal weight, at an ideal articulation with a brain, right? Because Boston Dynamic is programmed to do that dance. I mean, they do it well. I love the music, but that's it.
I get it. But look, it was very humorous watching Twitter last night, and everybody's saying, oh, the stock's going to go up tomorrow because, the numbers, you can explain it away as this logistics issue. And boy, AI Day was super. And I and several others say, no, there's no way the stock's going to go down. I think it was going to go down 8%. So the market is as skeptical as me. And look, what I try to do is I try to give you my own opinions, but I try to tell you how the street is going to react to something. And I'm telling you, the street is going to be as skeptical about robots as they are about robotaxi. That doesn't mean they're skeptical about FSD. FSD, it's a driver assist tool. People are paying $15,000. There's about an 8% take rate. You build it into your model. It's worth a lot of money. I just don't know how to model a robot that I can't even see what it does yet. And that's what the average institution
I spent a lot of time reading history, and I've been focused on different areas recently.
You just said you don't like math.
No, I do like math.
Oh, you don't like numbers?
I don't.
Especially when Gary does it for you.
You don't like analysts.
Yeah, I don't like analysts. Math is fine. It's the analysts who do it. No. Okay, sorry. Hey, the analysts were right this quarter on the production numbers. No, and I've been studying the history of California from like 1850 to the present, and then recently I've moved into the frontiers and sort of America between like 1800 and 1900. And let me tell you, okay, everybody was skeptical of everything, every step of innovation in this country from day one. If anything that defines America is risk-taking and skepticism, okay? Because if you were dumb enough to cross the Appalachian Mountains in like 1790, okay, there was basically everybody wanted to kill you, and it was a horrible idea. But Daniel Boone did it anyways, okay? And boy, this was the worst. I mean, it was like the worst thing ever living in Boonesville and I think it was Kentucky. And it's like Kentucky was like,
got to drink every day though.
They didn't even have that then. They didn't even have anything. It had nothing. Okay. So every time that we've had massive innovation in this country, and this is what makes America great, is our innovation and technology. There's no question. That's why we're invested in it. That's why you have a future fund. I have my fund to invest in these technologies. Elon Musk represents, I think, the greatest entrepreneurialism that America is, because that skepticism exists is what makes me believe that we're accomplishing amazing things. So all amazing things that we've done in American history were incredibly difficult, and tons of people failed, and many died, and most didn't believe possible.
Well, I'm not skeptical at all that robots can be used to replace humans in a lot of basic functions. I believe that. My question is, can Tesla from a 12-month start catch up with everybody else who's been working on it for years?
Well, they did pretty good in 12 months.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, the robot waves and it walks.
Yeah, well, that's something.
Okay, it's
Now
better.
let me play devil's advocate. Let me play devil's advocate. Will they come, the analysts and especially the less Tesla loving analysts, and say there will be so much R&D money from Tesla spent on the bot, and with no promise to make money out of it? And my second question is, did you think the 20,000 Elon mentioned are purchasing price or cost to manufacture?
I thought it was a purchasing price, but look, if he can get the price down to $20,000, people will buy it, and look, people will. Somebody said you just buy a Toyota and you buy a bot and you get the bot to drive your Toyota.
Right.
Okay. So 20,000 is a great price if he can get the cost down. I'm not that concerned about him making money on the bots. I just want to see what it can do. And so back to your question, do you have a robot, one for McDonald's doing work there, and one for a normal factory doing work there, and one for the rich person's, garden, housekeeping, whatever? Do you have lots of different robots, or do you have one robot that can do everything?
I thought it was like
different software apps. Different software apps.
Right.
You buy for a monthly subscription to the services you want to have loaded up.
Yeah. So you load up dishwashing or cracking rocks open or whatever.
Making French.
There's no doubt in my mind that you will have robots doing that within a few years. I guess the question is Tesla going to be the only one who's doing that? Back to your number.
The only one, probably not.
Well, but that's kind of what you're saying. If you're putting a $250 billion valuation on, if you sell, just do the math like you did.
I think they'll be the only one in scale.
If you had 100,000 at 50,000, okay, and that 250 billion would be like 50 times sales. Right. That number.
Right.
So that's assuming that nobody else is able to do it except Tesla.
Okay. So Gary, who can manufacture like them? Who can manufacture so quickly, so well, a car or a robot or something else?
The only chance would be Japanese companies.
I don't know.
There you go.
I don't know.
Maybe German companies.
I would love to see others' products and see what they do today. And again, I tried to, after I saw AI Day, I tried to read a lot of robotics experts, and look, they were mostly kind of mixed on this. And, without pointing to companies that had an advantage versus Tesla, they weren't wowed by the fact that in 12 months, this is what they'd accomplished. And maybe they should have been wowed.
I think these people often are, pretty.
Okay, but they're robotics people. These are not like analysts like me. They're people who do this for a living. So I guess I would like to see more before I say, to your question, would people put it into evaluation? The answer is no until people show what it can do versus competitors. And you can't do that based on AI Day. You can assume that because Elon's a genius and he did it with EVs, he can do it with robots. That's fine. But I can't, in good conscience, put it into my Tesla valuation until I see it actually works.
Can't you think of it sort of like an option?
Sure.
Where it's like, to me, I'm not changing my valuation on it either per se. What I think is this option that if I own Tesla, there's this thing out there that could be massive, and it's massively positive for the company if they succeed. And if they don't succeed, everything else is still great. So
You could.
it's like an option. Like,
So is the market inefficient today and knocking?
no,
the
I
stock
don't.
down
I don't think
8%?
that. I don't think the market is like that.
Stupid.
Yeah, the market's the market. So if the market thinks the stock is worth 8% less because of all these issues, that's actually fine with me because I'm a buyer of the stock. So, for long-term investors, I don't see why you would knock down 10%
You
of
would
the
not-
overall value of the entire company because of 20,000 cars on a boat. But that said, rationality is not what the stock market is about. Okay. The stock market is about taking advantage of irrationality. And that's, I think, what we have to figure out is what is kind of what you said earlier, which I 100% agree. It's not a cheap stock. So like if I'm assigning a PE ratio to Tesla and I'm looking at its growth rate and I'm looking at its PE, it's a very attractive stock to me.
Right.
Okay. But it's not cheap on an absolute basis.
Right.
And that's why it's down. And we're in one of the worst markets in 20 years, I think they're saying. And so, granted, maybe the market's also overacting on the downside too, because we're in a bear market. So that said, I think for investors, there's a lot of positive in the last 4 days. If you scrape away all the noise, there's a lot of positive things going on in an extremely difficult business environment. See, I think you have to take that into consideration because I do think everything you said about China is accurate. But what I think is it's an incredibly difficult operating environment. And to have the success that they've had in this environment, I think is something that investors should take note of.
Look, if this was Google selling it 15 times and they missed by 6% or 5%, which is what they missed by versus expectations, stock would be down 2%.
Right.
It's just
Right.
because it's got a high multiple,
it's got a multiple.
the market is expecting growth out of Tesla that when it doesn't deliver,
Right.
The deception is bigger.
And this is not a one-time issue. The market is telling us that they perceive it to be more than a one-time issue, or it's not just about logistics challenges. That's what the market is saying by knocking it down.
Will the stock go up, Gary? Will the stock go up if they start cutting prices?
I believe it would. I think if in China they took the price down and you had all of a sudden 50,000 orders come in and people could see this huge backlog again in China because so many people are waiting. I actually think a price cut in China, and it's about 5%, and I wouldn't do it across the board. I would just do it on the base
Right, just
model.
to get those models to qualify.
Yeah. And then I would bet that the stock market.
That's
would
probably
reward
what's going to
that.
happen. It's probably what's going to happen.
But they kind of drew a line in the sand and said, we're not cutting price. They didn't do it. And again, in China, if you now cut price, you're going to piss off a lot of Chinese
Right, that was like last time.
who bought it, and you're going to hurt the brand. And it's
Well, they have to
it's a
be
shame
delicate
factor.
with the way they
Yeah.
deal with that.
So they kind of dug their grave here, and they have to kind of stick with it, which means they're going to have to keep exporting product out or do something with China demand to stimulate it. Maybe it's a bigger battery. Maybe it's something different. I'm not sure what.
Well, part of it is
what it is.
also just the economy there too. I mean,
Okay, that's fair.
The
macro factor.
I can't imagine if I'm being locked. It was kind of like when we were locked down here in America. It was like you weren't thinking I'm going to go buy a car.
No.
You're like I'm trying to get out of my house to get food, right? So
Yeah.
I think, and also because we own stocks that have some exposure in Macau, it's the same issue. I mean, it's like it's real tough to invest in China for everybody from Starbucks and everybody else. So once again, I think you can extrapolate all the issues out. They're legitimate, but I think they're short term, and I think that China is going to resolve some of their economic issues in the next 6 months. So if China had a 6 or 7% growth rate in the economy, I don't think we're having this conversation, Gary.
I agree.
Do you think if we see cars and the robots and energy and everything else from Tesla growing so much, there will come the moment that the company gets too big and needs to spin off the different divisions? Or can this become the largest company in the world as one unit?
I think it already functions that way. So I think it functions sort of like several different companies in one, and
Several startups in one.
Yeah.
as they call it.
as they say,
The
it's
challenge
kind of like
right now-
Microsoft.
The challenge right now as an institutional investor is there's key man risk. And I
Right.
tried to ask Elon about that at the annual meeting, and he kind of shrugged it off and said, well, yeah, I might go back to Mars and that'll happen maybe. But he has to build a team around him that people can look at and
But
say,
you saw all this team on AI. Look at these 30 young engineers, all well spoken, all they were perfect.
they're engineers.
No, but
And you
I
have to
think
find people who
Gary's
run
right here.
businesses. You have to find people that will run the business, make tough decisions. Being an
Leaders.
engineer is one thing. You need leaders who can inspire others.
And I don't think people believe that, that Tesla has tons of people like that. Unlike Google, unlike Microsoft, those people go and they go do something else and they run companies. Except for the engineers, you don't see other people at Tesla going out and running other companies.
And we've seen how engineers do running companies like Twitter. So, I don't think it's like the same skill set. It's just a different skill set. But I'm just saying that, this is the single greatest risk at Tesla. I talked about it on Friday in this thing I was on, that, just this assumption that we all live forever and nobody gets sick and nobody has anything go wrong. I dealt with this with Steve Jobs. Apple was my top holding. And like, I literally remember all the calls I was getting from people going, are we trusting Tim Cook and whatever? And at the time I had a pretty decent amount of confidence in Tim Cook because of the way that Jobs had so set him up. Yeah. And what I would tell my clients is that Jobs just gave Cook the biggest gift. Like he almost would have to just like totally screw it up to mess up Apple. But Tim wasn't going to be that risk taker. So it was like, he was like, here's my baby and run with it. And I don't think
he stuck around for a while.
Tim is still here.
No. Steve Jobs stuck around.
Well,
and he died.
Not really. Yeah, he died. But I'm saying in the sense of like, if you said like, Elon, you're going to turn the baby over, who's really going to take this baby? He'd be like, I'm not giving this baby to anybody, right?
No, there's no name that pops out.
None.
And that's the challenge here, that if you have robots and you have EVs and you have energy and you have, the charging stations, and then you throw on top of it, he's got Neuralink and, he's got these other businesses. How do you do it? And maybe possibly Twitter as well. How do you do it all?
Well, I think he's
would GB Strobel coming back? Would GB Strobel coming back? Somebody that gives you comfort.
He's not coming back.
Is that a rumor?
You don't think so?
No, he's not.
No, I mean, it's just us speculating.
No, I know for sure he's not coming back because Redwood's like raising money left and right, and it's like one of the most biggest like wanted.
But is that really? I mean, if your choice is running Redwood or going back to run Tesla,
the only way he gets Strobel back is he buys Redwood.
Elon has to develop his next generation of leaders.
Yeah.
He has to do it, and it's probably something he doesn't like doing because leading and managing people it's painless. No CEO likes being a CEO. I didn't like being a CEO. People come into your office and they complain every day.
That's
horrible.
Very accurate.
Nobody likes it.
It's funny because Elon has come out and he has himself said that he hates being CEO multiple times. Yeah.
It's a totally thankless job. I agree with that 100%. But that said, I think Elon's notorious for not being able to retain high-level employees, and that sort of churn and burn. I'm going to get the best out of my employees for 5 years, and then they leave and they're rich, but they leave. Change. It's just you just don't set up your future very well because it's like you're just like constantly turning over stars, and then those people go to other companies or retire. And
so let me put it. Another question. I mean, JB Strobel and obviously Elon know each other, respect each other. If Tesla buys Redwood Materials, would he be the candidate you would be comfortable with?
No. Why would I want JB running Tesla per se? Like he hasn't even been there for years now, know? And so like you have to promote within. Okay. You cannot build a real team and have a real success story if you're not promoting from within. That's my opinion. Maybe that's may or may not be true.
It's hard to bring people from
outside. To just hire somebody outside or hire somebody and say, now you're CEO of Tesla, like you demoralize all your up and coming stars. And so it's like, he's got it. Your point is very valid. He's got a lot of young, smart people at the company, like tons of great people
as leaders.
But leadership is different than engineering. And then secondly, for him, there is a very big emotional change to allow other people to lead your baby. And I don't think he's there mentally yet either. So I think this is the biggest risk with Tesla, and one that I don't think investors should discount, and one that I worry about of all the things that you could worry about. That's probably one of the only ones I really do worry about.
More than Chinese politics?
I'm not worried about that.
It's interesting, Alexandra, if you read some of these texts that are in the Twitter discovery and just people Elon talking back and forth with people, and maybe it's just selective. They didn't produce all the text, but you see a lot of people just agreeing and almost egging Elon on. Because I remember when Twitter first came, there were a lot of people in the community, including myself, but others, who said, this is dumb. This is a broken asset. Why would you buy this thing? And when you read all these texts from people on the board, people that were advisors, they're all egging him on to do it.
Yeah, I was part of that.
And that's I can't believe that
I wanted to
stood up and said, "This is dumb. Why are you doing this?"
I don't know if it was okay. It was.
I love the idea.
I encouraged him to. I think Twitter is.
It's nothing. It's not an engineering firm. It's not a product firm. It's an advertising firm, which he loathes. He loathes advertising.
Okay, you're 100% correct. I think in our hearts, as Twitter users, we hope for a better platform. And if there was anybody in my mind that could solve this very difficult problem, it might have been him. And I also believed it was an engineering problem to some degree, like building the platform to better serve its users.
Open source it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of ideas. I thought he had some great ideas, and I'm sad it's become what it's become. That said, it was more like an idealism type of wanting him to do it than a economic financial thing.
But this goes to the heart of he needs a deeper bench, and he needs a bench that's going to push back on him when he does something that is maybe not correct. And again, when you read these texts, you don't come away. There's a lot of people who are disagreeing with him, and that makes me nervous.
He tends to be very thin-skinned.
Oh, he does. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I don't think there is lots of opposition that's heard. And that comes a little bit with this whole cult movement. And we all love it, but there is no doubt about it that it exists. Let me get your take on Gerber, Ross, where we are now. Gary obviously thinks they're still negotiating and this will not go to trial and may still have an outcome settled before it goes to trial. What do you think?
Well, I work with a lot of lawyers and I have my own opinions about the legal system, and
probably as negative as mine.
Oh, we all.
Well, I'm not divorced, but that said, Elon would be making an enormous strategic mistake to put this in a trial. Okay, it's an enormous risk to go to trial.
It's 2 weeks from now.
They will settle the day before. Yeah. Okay, that's how it works. Okay, the lawyers want to get paid as much as possible. So they'll work and work and work until the day before. And then they'll get to the courthouse. And then the lawyers are going to say, Elon, you understand that if we go in here and we don't settle, you could be on the hook for $44 billion. Okay. And that is, lawyers don't provide advice. Okay. They're not going to say, this is what you should do. That's not what they do. What they do is they tell you your risks. That this outcome is not in our hands. It will be in this judge's hands, and you could be on the hook for $44 billion. Or you could write a check for $4 billion, which you easily have right now, give it to Twitter, and we can all move on. Okay? And the lawyers all get paid. Okay? That's how I see this ends. I know Elon wants to go to court and be the right or wrong guy, but that's not how our legal system works. It doesn't care who's right or wrong.
So he will not buy it, but he will settle for a higher price than $1 billion.
Well, I think if he ends up getting Twitter, it's a disaster. Everybody's left Twitter. Nobody wants to work there anymore. It's way worse. He's clearly damaged the company. Why would you want this company now?
So if that happens, how much is Twitter worth the next day? Let's say they get those $4 billion, and then what?
$4 billion plus whatever you want to assign to Twitter, which in my mind was somewhere in the low 30s.
It was 32 when he showed up. Look, it's not going to. You can't settle for $4 billion.
But Twitter's in worse shape than it was before this all started. And so once again, I don't know what the number is or what he's willing to pay, which I'm sure in his mind is zero, but is not going to be a reality. So we all get to a point with law where you have to decide how much you're going to pay so you can move on with your life. And clearly, if this goes to trial, it will be an extremely risky thing for Elon personally, and not what I would do if I were him. And so I think Gary's right. I think they will settle. I think they will settle the last day. And I think it would be in Twitter's best interest to take the money, okay, and move on, because having somehow Elon control this business now is actually not what the powers want. So that's my other cynical opinion of it, is part of this is so he doesn't get the company anyways, because the powers who control Twitter don't want him to have Twitter. So I don't know why they force him to buy the company.
I don't think he can settle for $4 billion, Ross. That's the problem.
You think it's more? You think it's like 10?
It's more like 20, because you got to look at what you just did. $54, which is deal certainty if they carry it through, assuming he pays them,
Right.
versus maybe 32, times 800 million shares, less
Right.
what he owns. It's a probably
You could
a
argue
$15 billion, $20 billion check, and he gets nothing for that. Or he could carry through with the deal, maybe negotiate a better price, maybe 50, at least he gets something out of it. Because if it's 15 billion, he's just throwing it away.
What is he getting again?
He's getting a broken
He's
social media company,
nightmare,
which has terrible culture, nightmare. And it doesn't fit his skill set. So
that's like taking your ex-wife back again.
That's true, and I would never do that.
Right.
So
there you go.
So he has to know this.
No way. There's no way.
This court is a deal certainty court.
That's for sure.
And it sets precedent. And this judge, who works her butt off, smart as a whip, always prepared, she has made it very clear that she favors the Twitter case. You can see it in every one of her rulings. So
I mean, look at the contract. I mean, it was Elon's contract. It's like it's pretty open and shut.
It's a seller-friendly contract. So I think if it goes to trial, he will lose. And yeah, there'll be some embarrassing moments for Twitter. And that would be the only reason Twitter might settle, because Elon might decide, he wants to file in federal court a claim, or he's going to appeal it to the Delaware Supreme Court, or maybe he won't pay, and they're going to have.
Well, yeah, it's more uncertainty, right? It's more uncertainty.
So if you give me $51 or $52, this is where I get into debates with the Tesla Q people. If you give me 51, 52, they might take it, so they don't have to go through the embarrassment of going through, because there's lots of things that they did wrong as well.
But you're not factoring in the fact that maybe many of the forces that control Twitter don't want Elon to be in control of Twitter.
Like who?
Like Saudi Arabia.
So why would they?
Oh, even America.
Like the Biden administration, maybe?
No. I'm talking about like the people who control this board, whoever controls Twitter. It's clearly not Jack Dorsey, right? Somebody controls Twitter. We don't really know, do we?
Well, there's a board.
There's a board, but like
there's a CRM CEO.
Yeah, but they
Taylor,
like Parag doesn't know anything.
No, Parag's weak.
Okay,
Parag's
so
weak.
Like some force is controlling. I don't know who it is, but it's not. I don't know who's controlling.
Look,
all the stuff that goes on there. But that said, it's one of the most powerful information tools for misinformation in the world, and it's used daily for misinformation, whether it's the Iranian protests or whether we're talking about Ukrainian propaganda or Russian propaganda, from the zero hedge people to whatever.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Let's suppose Elon has two choices, because this judge is going to want to get specific performance from him. So either he goes through with the deal, okay, and let's assume she's going to rule that, or she's going to say, you make the Twitter shareholders whole,
right?
Which means pay the difference between 54.20 and wherever the stock is on a standalone basis, which maybe is 15,
maybe they say 44,
billion.
So they say it's $10.
Okay, but let's say it's 15-20 billion if he just pays a penalty to walk away, versus he can close the deal at, make it up 50. What do you think he would do? He only has those two choices. I mean, he's not going to win a trial.
I don't know what he would do. If you ask me what I would do, take a broken company for $44 billion that's going to be a pain in my butt and lose money for who knows how long, or just pay the tariff. And if I had $280 billion or whatever he had, I would pay the money, because I have $280 billion.
So you would take the company over and fix it?
No. I would just
pay the bill.
I'd pay the bill and yeah. What does he care?
But then it goes back to, why did he buy Twitter in the first place? Is it because he wanted to be a power broker in the 2024 election? I mean, what was his point of buying it?
Yes, power.
So why is that not still on the table? Did he still?
Because it turns out he doesn't control that power as much as he thought. It turns out that power might be bigger than even him. So
if he takes it private, because that's what he wants to do, right?
Well, whether he takes it private or not doesn't change.
I'm just curious why he did it in the first place.
I think it's power. Look, every billionaire owns a newspaper or something, and like,
or a sports team.
Yeah, no, sports team is about ego. So I can say, hey, buddy, you want to come to the owner's box? And there's only so many, and you get a ring, you're real cool. But owning Twitter, You're controlling the information. So when the Ayatollah says, "Oh, I don't like this," he tweets it, and Putin's tweeting, and he's like, "I control the most important media property for news in the world." I think that's power, right? That's how
Do you think that there's absolutely no merit to the fact that he legitimately wants to make free speech more available to the people? Do you think that's like a cover for something else?
Power. That's the power, right?
That's the power.
Yeah, because if he controls this platform, then he can make it however he wants. And if he wants to have free speech for everybody and put Trump back on and have this town square, he could make it that, or he could not. But that's the power when you control the platform. Look at Zuckerberg. I mean, he'll die before he'll give up power at Facebook. He'll drive that stock to zero before he'll give up power at Facebook, because it's about power.
Yeah.
I think that he wants Twitter, and right now it's just negotiation of price. So to me, a deal is 51, 52, some discount, which it's a lot of money when you just think about it, over 700 million shares. It's a couple $1 billion. He hasn't run up $2 billion in legal costs yet. So he can cut $3 a share off. That's worth his time if he can get it for a cheaper price before the trial.
Yeah, but what he's getting is a severely diminished company from where he started.
It is.
Well, he would have fired loads of them anyway. I mean, when he explained it, you were at the shareholder meeting, Gary. He was talking about it like the next girlfriend, not the ex-wife, and explaining that if he wouldn't do Twitter, he would do X company and would take 2-3 years longer to do it, but he will do it anyway. So I still believe he'll do it. But let's move on to the stock price. What?
Just for a second. So your basic premise is that after all this, he'll end up getting Twitter, and then he'll start implementing this plan.
Hire somebody to run it.
But then, if he's in such a weak legal position, why wouldn't he just go through with the deal in the first place then?
Because you're trying to save a few $1 billion.
And because obviously now the lawyers are involved. The lawyers are not going to give him some slack.
Come on, a few $1 billion to a guy who has unlimited amount of money, who doesn't care about money.
Maybe I think more than a couple billion. Maybe he's going to.
I don't think it's about money.
Maybe.
That's why I think it's about, in his head, I think it's about truth, and he really feels like the truth is that the user base of Twitter is smaller than he thought. Then he's trying to get the valuation that correlates with that user base. I really think he's.
That's always.
Do you know how many percent of your users are bots?
None.
Zero.
None.
I asked them.
They all wear blue shirt.
I'm gonna check your comment section.
How many? No, there's tons of bots on Twitter.
No, but your user base, you don't think there's any that are bots? There are no fake accounts?
Probably not.
Wow.
Now I've been on Twitter for, I think, over 10 years.
Well, maybe you
and
have
I can tell you my journey. Okay. And when we first started, we had tons of fake bots, and you could just buy them, and Twitter was basically selling them. So like, if you wanted like 5,000 followers, you could pay like $200. It was like nothing. And Twitter was behind all this at the beginning. Okay. So they were perfectly fine taking money any way they could, and so they built it up. And then, I had this experience where during the election early on, I insulted President. This was 2020. Was this 2020? No, this was not. No, this was Trump when he got elected 2016. Okay. I insulted Trump, and I threatened the president of the United States.
Surprise.
And I had a very bad experience.
They bounced you off of Twitter for a while?
No, what happened was the bots attacked me.
Oh, wow.
So the Russian-based bot factory that was backing Trump attacked me, and I was assaulted like I've never seen on Twitter ever. Because back then it was so corrupt, Twitter was so manipulated that I think it was like 75% of the traffic was fake. Well, here's the experience. They doxed me. It was all the right wingers. It was the gnarliest thing. Then the Secret Service came to the office. My office. The Secret Service was here to interview me.
Look at Gary.
The president, supposedly.
This is a true story.
The staff was here.
Wow.
Okay. You guys don't know this about me?
No.
No, keep on going. Keep on going.
And Trump. Okay. And this was a gnarly thing because they made up this whole thing, fake news, and posted it. So I had all these crazy people calling me, and we're going to burn my office down and murder my family. And it was brutal. It was brutal.
First of all, what did you say about Trump to deserve all
What
that?
happened was, it was a Sunday morning, and I'm on Twitter, and they said Trump was coming to campaign in LA. And I said, like, wow, I can't believe this, person is coming to where everybody hates him to campaign. There's already so much traffic already. We should all leave our cars on the road and not, block the motorcade. I didn't say block the motorcade, but I said we should have a massive nonviolent protest. Now, I did say nonviolent protest because I'm kind of from that, hippie tradition. I'm not a violent protester. I'm a nonviolent protester. Thank God I put that, by the way.
Otherwise you'd be dead.
Right. So the right wingers. So I tweeted this on a Sunday morning, go out, having a great day with my family, come back. My Twitter has exploded comments, this, that, you're the worst human. We're going to kill you. I mean, it was a nightmare. Right. So I was like, what did I do? And then, next thing you know, this thing had exploded, and it was like, when the tweet hit like 600,000 views, that's when the bots came in and started attacking, And so on Monday at work, they had flooded the phone lines with phone calls. They emailed employees saying to quit. It was gnarly. Okay. So it was gnarly. So I didn't know what was going on. And I didn't know these were fake accounts or real. So I'm sitting in my office getting pounded on Twitter, getting emails, Facebook, everywhere, but not one call from anybody I knew. Like, nobody I knew had seen any of this. And I was like, this is so weird. My clients aren't calling. Like, I threatened the president of the United States. It's all over Twitter, and not one of my clients is calling. So I was like, this is weird. So day 1 goes by, day 2 goes by, and day 3, it stops. It just disappears. All the Twitter comments disappear. Well, I start clicking on all these profiles. They're all fake accounts. It's all bot farms that were being run by the Russians or whoever was supporting Trump, right? And so I'm like, this is crazy, right? This is totally crazy. So then we were going to send an email to clients. So like, if they saw all this stuff, and then I was like, wait, don't send anything out. Nobody saw this. And I go, Twitter's actually fake. There's nobody on Twitter, actually. So then I started asking people, do you use Twitter? Like, do you use Twitter? No. Do you use Twitter? No. So it turned out nobody really used Twitter. And that's when I learned that all this stuff was fake. Okay. And then they started this purge thing under Jack. I don't know if you remember this. So they would purge people's Twitter profiles of fake accounts.
Well, they did it every quarter.
No, but they went through this concerted effort in the Trump period, I think, to try to prove that they had some sort of system or whatever.
They do that now.
And they went through mine, and I lost all those fake followers I had originally bought, whatever. But, I look at my followers all the time.
And you don't think you have any fake?
No, I don't know how many, but there's no concerted effort. And certainly I interact with people on Twitter all the time in real life. So that's why I think it's so much of it is real.
And that's how we all met, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But let me try to move on a little bit. So
how much interaction I have with real life people on Twitter. But that said, a large percentage of it is fake.
Yeah.
And
let me move on a little bit because sure. So we have 2 scenarios for Twitter. One, it settles at a low price and Elon gets off it. One, it settles at a little lower than 54 and Elon buys it. But that's all good. But what happens to the Tesla stock price? Does that still have an impact on the stock price? If not, what are, for the next quarter, for the next 6 months, your prediction? Is everything just macro driven? We all hope obviously of the S&P upgrade, but are there any other good news in the near future?
I think it goes up either way. If you get resolution to Twitter, we have to read about it every day and read about, this, whatever they're talking about at the trial, it's an overhang that lifts from the stock. And so the math is, if it's $54 a share, he's going to have to raise another couple billion. He's already raised 15 billion. He might have to raise 3 or 4 billion, depending on how you count the restricted stock. If you count that as shares, he has to buy out. So he's going to have to raise something, but it's not a big number. If he can get it for like 51, 52, he doesn't have to raise a dime. He's already there. So, and it's just the fact that this overhang lifts, the stock actually goes up.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it's a huge distraction from the real story, and I think resolution is a big positive. It's interesting because I feel like I'm the only one in this group that feels like, he should not deal with Twitter anymore. And granted, I have a very good friend who works there, so I know exactly what Elon will be getting when he shows up on Monday.
And you egged him on to buy it. You're one of those.
Originally, I did, yeah. But things were not as bad then. Okay. When Elon first started this, they even released those texts. Remember the text where Parag is like, listen, we need to talk. Your tweets are like hurting. That was real.
Yeah.
Okay. He was actually like, that was a for real request. He wasn't being silly.
And it went south real quick.
Right. But Elon was kind of just being a dick, to be honest, because Parag was dealing with that.
He said, what'd you get done this week?
Right.
Did you read that one?
Right. Well, he doesn't get much done, granted. So Parag doesn't get much done. But that said, what Parag's been doing all week is trying to put out fires from Elon, like all week. And so it's like, so over this last several months, like including my friend, I'm like, why would you stay at Twitter? Because you work for stock. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever your pay is, 200, 300, whatever you get paid at Twitter is not why you work there. You work for stock. And so it's like, I'm like, there's no outcome here that's good for most of the employees there.
Well, if Elon buys it for 51,
most of them are in for 40 something anyways. Nobody's getting rich on a $54 buyout. Okay. It's just the private equity guys getting out, And so like in my mind, and what I told my friend, I said, you should get out of there immediately and go to Roblox or Microsoft or whatever, because it's just like, what's your upside at Twitter? Mm-hmm. And so everybody's leaving now. So now you're in this legal like morass, and there's even more uncertainty. And so like, why would you stay at Twitter? So most of the people are like maxing out their benefits right now, taking their paternity leave, their sick pay, and they're on their way out. It's super competitive in tech, and there's lots of good tech companies to work at. So what Elon's getting is substantially less than 4 months ago.
Even though we thought it was a broken company back when he bid on it, he said it's even worse.
Right. So like at the time, if he would have closed the deal like smoothly and successfully, there would have been a team at Twitter that would have stayed and believed in Elon. And there was a team of, let's say, the woke people at Twitter that were super like sabotaged, like did not want a part of this. And they would have either left or suffered through it. But like there was an opportunity there to do something with Twitter, and it was a very small window. And I think that window closed long ago.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I think the one thing that's interesting for me to think about in regards to Twitter, like regardless of its current state, and I hear Ross loud and clear, but I do wonder how much of Elon's character is, he doesn't really mind taking on quote unquote perceived like dumpster fires or things that would be very, very difficult, because he at least might see a perceived advantage in the network effects he would get from Twitter, and there would be an acceleration. What's that?
That's his personal life, I think you're talking about.
But
professional too.
Yeah, professional too. I mean, you think about, Tesla at the very beginning, it was he openly came out and said that it was a mistake to come in and do that. He wished he would have done it from scratch. SpaceX, incredibly difficult thing. Like he keeps doing these things that appear to be very, very difficult, and he shouldn't tackle on, but there's always some sort of perceived advantage he would get from moving towards that direction. So I wonder how much of that is the guiding principle for him to just lock down Twitter and move forward. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud, but
all those other cases you cited, those are about engineering and product. So Elon could take his engineering skills, and he's a brilliant engineer, and he's a brilliant product guy, and come up, landing a rocket on a small pad in the ocean, that only a few people could figure out how to do that. Okay. And build an EV that has changed the world and make it scalable and 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. And, that's an engineering marvel. And I would bet Neuralink and Boring are also engineering marvels. Twitter is not that.
Right.
Twitter is an ad business.
Right.
Elon.
Well, but you're forgetting PayPal. He was also the key person at PayPal. Okay. And I do believe
my point is those other companies are engineering product driven, and Elon's skills fit them perfectly. With Twitter, he hates advertising, and it's an advertising driven business. 90% of the revenues come from advertising. And while he may say he wants to convert it,
and he doesn't even advertise, right? He doesn't even advertise.
He wants to have it as a foundation. He doesn't want it as a profit for profit. He will take it private.
Yeah, no, but that's not what they told private investors, which I was considering being one of them. They're doing this for money. Don't be confused.
They want to take it private and then bring it public again in 5 years.
Yeah, this was to make money too. He wasn't going to get investors if he didn't have a business plan to make money.
To lend it to. It's not just a hobby that way. So I just struggle with the fit of his skills, which is very engineering, very product driven, with a business that has nothing to do with that. You could say, well, if you put a bunch of engineers, you get rid of the bots. But as Ross just got done saying, maybe the bots are already gone, or a lot of them are gone.
Well, no, I would say that they eliminated at least half of what used to be.
But that's not the reason you hate Twitter, is it? Because of the bots? That's not.
No, I don't hate Twitter at all. I hate it as a company. I like Twitter as a platform.
Yeah, but the bots aren't really. That's not making you.
No, I mean, yeah, it seriously degrades the value of the platform. First of all, because
do you think they get more users or be able to charge more? Like
for sure,
You got rid of the bots.
Oh, for sure. Really? And that suggestion alone of having verified accounts for people alone would be amazingly powerful for Twitter. Okay. Because I would like to just know who's verified and who's not. I don't care who your profile is, but like, it's ridiculous, the bull crap that's put on a lot of my tweets. And like, I'll block these people because I know they're bots. You just go into their profile and you can see it. It's like they only retweet. They have 4 followers, but they're Ross, your ETF is a disaster. You Tesla lover. And I'm like, this guy's never tweeted anything but this ever. It's like, how would they even know me? So I think that, and so why wouldn't Twitter just do that right now? Well, the answer is because they make money from all that activity, right? But see, what you're saying is so true, Gary. Elon has no business running Twitter. Okay. I went to the Annenberg School of Communications at Penn. He went to the engineering school. Okay. I am the one who's actually qualified from that educational background to run Twitter. He never called me, never asked. Okay. Happy to have told him my stories and my experiences. And that he's talking to Jack Dorsey, and it seemed like Jack Dorsey just sent him down the river, And so like,
well, he asked Jason to run it, right? And I mean,
the money and get out of this nightmare, because he's not going to be able to run Twitter successfully. I love Elon, but this is not his skill set.
But let me ask you a question. What is an alternative social media that you would use if Twitter doesn't exist?
Oh,
build
God,
himself. He really wants
him.
Exactly. There is nothing. That's exactly it. There is nothing out there.
Build it from scratch.
I don't think he would get users. He would get Tesla followers.
There you go. But that's not enough. That's what True Social tried with, and exactly example of not to do it. I still think it's the best thing he can do.
Yeah, well,
if he wants the power, for sure.
If he wants the power, that's the way it's going to go, and I think that's how this all.
And Facebook, Instagram,
and I tell you one thing. Let's get back to Tesla. He needs the power. Tesla needs the power. Tesla needs the power to get FSD through. He needs to make political friends. He needs to get them into a more neutral situation.
Okay, especially with a bot coming down the pike too.
Exactly. There you go. Because that bot, I love the bot idea, but this is gonna destroy labor, right? We all agree on it. It's all fine to talk about abundance, but there is a political aspect to it that's gonna emerge.
What's interesting? The last couple of weeks, I've seen the argument turn, and all of a sudden they're saying, if you notice, we have to get regulatory approval for FSD. If we get regulatory approval, and this has been something that I know Alexandra and I have been talking about this for probably a year, you need some communications, call it PR or whatever you want, because you need to be able to say, hey, look, we're good actors. We care about people's safety. Tesla's all about safety. It's the number one safety, safest brand out there, and they've never done that before. But if you want to get regulatory approval, you've got to have some sort of communications program out there, and Twitter can help you do that. So I agree with that. It's just, why not just go cheap though and hire $2 million a year to get this type of stuff out there? Then rely on Twitter, which is $44 billion.
Well, that, and not an per se accurate way to get information out there either, because you can put out accurate information and then it's followed by misinformation constantly. So,
you're a communications person. You get this.
Yeah, but I get misinformation, and Tesla doesn't even play that game. You know what I'm saying? So it's like Tesla doesn't play the media game. We're the media game.
They never show up. They don't even bother.
Yeah, they don't play the game. They're not in the game.
Show that
which is why the Wall Street
meme that I
Journal
sent you yesterday.
finds like
Oh, yeah, sure.
Tesla misses all their numbers. And it's like, well, that's not 100% accurate, right? And it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
If Tesla had a PR department, call it what you want, they would have been out there after AI Day saying, here's what you should have taken away from this. And they sent out something and they got to all the.
That's why I tweeted
media.
Elon.
That's what they do.
I tweeted Elon.
What a lot of people don't realize is a lot of the competitors are the ones that are feeding the media stuff and then they run with it. It's not like the media is necessarily biased. They are. But it's more the competitors are working with them and giving them stuff that they can run with.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's the same thing. It's like they're just not going to do it, and it's like, okay, well, so I just tweet them. I'm like, it'd be really great if we could talk like. And you could explain this to regular people how this will impact them, because it's nice to watch an AI Day video, but most people it's just like not for them.
Show that tweet as well, Fazet, please.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that you did that. Not this one, Fazet, the tweet yesterday between Ross and Elon, because I mean it got on my nerves. I know I'm oversensitive when Elon replies, but it just got on my nerves. First of all, you didn't ask him anything about the stock price. Let's wait until Fazet has it up. So you ask him whether he can, explain a little bit the business case for the bot, right? And what are the global economic implications, right? He answers, I don't care about boosting the stock. Nobody asked him about the stock, but the economic implications are obvious. So thank you for thinking we're all idiots.
I haven't replied to that yet. I haven't even gone through my Twitter yet.
It's not about the stock. It's about getting the word out.
I got to go on my Twitter and
people
answer.
Understand why this is so significant for society.
Yeah.
It's just,
well, it isn't the implication there that he doesn't want to care about boosting the stock because Optimus is going to generate so much value for the company that it's just not going to be
asking him about the stock.
Well, certainly he didn't boost the stock. So no, I have no intention of anything to do with the stock, to be honest. Yeah. It's exactly what I'm saying. Like, we've discussed for 40 minutes, what are the implications of this robot?
But they're not obvious to the average.
They're not obvious to even us, in my mind, in a lot of ways. We're still trying to sort of hash out and see, for me, he's such a technical guy. I was like, maybe we can have some sort of conversation that regular people could understand more. And that's where I'm
no avail.
But it's the press, it's regulators, it's society, it's consumers. If they're not going to advertise, how do you get the message to the average congressman out there unless you've got a PR team that's right. getting it in the New York Times or the Washington Post well,
you see how many politicians go through Fremont every week? It's zero. So it's they don't play the game. See this.
They complain when it's biased against them. That's not right. You can't have a
and this is what pisses me off, because I talk to them all the time, and it's Elon who kind of poo-poos this whole thing. But it's there's a lot of advantages to playing the game, and
even minimally,
and just relying on your messaging from me and Gary and all of the Tesla community constantly putting out information. There's a nice side to that. It reminds me very much of the Grateful Dead and the people that would follow the Grateful Dead. And a lot of people made a living following Grateful Dead, and it was their messaging and their food and their whatever. But it was sort of why don't they just do this? It's sort of, and so I kind of question one of the biggest companies in the world not having a highly advanced media strategy, propaganda strategy.
Completely agree. And I will take it even a point further, because it really gets on my nerves from time to time. I think it's actually not fair to the retail investor. I mean, I know as retail investors, we've had a good time with Tesla and had, good returns on everything. But I do feel from time to time, nobody cares about us. Nobody cares about our stock price. Nobody cares about good communication. And I just wish, they're having this new second IR person up there. There are rumors around that it's going to be Rob Moore. That's why he was, so groomed on the AI Day presentation and all that, which would be perfect. But whoever it is, I really wish they better address retail. And I still hope they put somebody on the board that represents retail and has a strong enough voice to be heard by Elon, because it's not easy to get through to Elon. I think Elon has a quite patriarchal way of running his board, and I really wish there's somebody up there that we can send our ideas to, and we will be heard.
I'm wondering how much of like this style of I guess lack of communication or whatever you want to call it is the fact that he's been able to sort of play this anti-game where hasn't had to do this for really since the founding of the company, that has enabled him to really reach the place where he's at now, from not just like a monetary perspective, but like just an achievement perspective and creating value for the world. And that's a proof of concept that says, well, I got to this point and I'm extremely successful not playing the game. Why should I play the game now? Could that be part of the equation as well?
I think that is part of the equation. And that, there's sort of like famous last words from lots of people who eventually like have problems, like you have to adapt to where you're at, not where you came from. And when you're a startup, I was one, once, and you're bootstrapping everything and you can't afford an ad budget, and you try to market and sell however you can. And you become very successful at these things. It's very easy to say, why would I change something that's worked so well? And I've got Ross and Gary and all of these wonderful people who constantly promote our business for us. So why do I even worry about it? Because, truthfully, they kind of told me once, it was like, we're happy with the job you're doing, Ross. And I was like, I'm on TV all the time, all this crap, every time Elon does something, and it's exhausting. And quite frankly, I'd rather have a Tesla spokesperson do it, and they were like, we're fine with you doing it kind of thing. And I was like, I'm not, but I feel like I'm always in a position having to explain everything. I got to go on TV tomorrow, explain all this stuff tomorrow. I got to explain it the next day and the next day. And I'm fine doing it because it's my largest investment and I love the company and I love the products and I love the people who work at Tesla, and it's made me a fortune and I'm super grateful. It's been a huge, huge plus in my career and for my clients. And so by no means am I any not gratefulness to Elon and Tesla, but you're the biggest company in the world and you affect a lot of things that are incredibly important. And for you to be successful in the future, we have to adapt to the fact that not just the American government, but government and people around the world have much incentive to cause Tesla problems. Yeah. And at the same respect, there's lots of incentive for them to see Tesla succeed. And you have to sell them this, and you have to sell the politicians this, and you have to donate to these people, and you've got to build a pack, and you've got to do these things. That's how you manipulate the world we live in. And that's what they do at every other company in America. Yeah. And so it's time that Elon.
And I have been monitoring the job site, the Tesla job site. How I like to be my little ant and collecting data. It's been 9 months that they have this job offers out in Washington, D.C. for 3 lobbyists. Nothing happens. Yeah. Those ads are there. Nothing happens. Yesterday evening, I checked again.
It works.
I think it's philosophical with Elon. I think he feels that the product speaks for itself and people will just figure it out if they put it out there. So like they have this quarterly safety report that comes out.
Yeah.
And Tesla's like number 1. Well, nobody's going to read that. Nobody in Washington's going to read it. You got to spoon feed people this. And
you don't read an 87-page report.
No, you got to get it out there. And if you're a PR person, that's what you do. You take little drips and dribs and you give it to the
they don't even read the
regulators.
budget that they sign. It's like.
So this it's just interesting to me that this shift I've seen in the last month or so, where we have to get regulators to approve FSD. I don't know. That to me seems interesting because they've never talked like that before. But that's something that really important, that you have some communication strategy that talks to those regulators so the regulators know what they're trying to approve. Yeah. So I think that's
and the material is there, but it's not packaged in the right way. It's not presented to the right people. It's not done on a regular basis. I mean, I can only talk about my ESG research. I went into that rabbit hole. There's so much to be said, but never any help from Tesla. What's this all about? If I would have a person there I could talk to, get their input from it, and I tried, nothing, just nothing. And I just think it's a shame because we're really trying our best all from all sides we come. And I have to really congratulate all this, Tesla community and how everybody is participating and bringing their little angle to it and helping it. But I do believe Tesla should do their part as well. And I really hope they all hear us, and we should just, continue.
I think
out that message.
But I do think it has to be Elon that's going to make this decision. I think everybody at Tesla agrees with us. I think it's Elon.
I've heard that from people at Tesla that I talked to. There's a lot of agreement about this, and people have told me, don't stop pushing, keep pushing. And I think Elon, just to Ross's point, that's not how they grew up. He grew up succeeding without advertising. So why does he need it now? Or PR?
Oh, no, even worse. He had PR. He had PR in the growth period. It was bad. The FUD was so much that PR didn't help, and he just cut it, right? And so now going back to it means putting in question a decision he has taken 3 years ago and reverse it, which is always difficult when you have made the decision.
So believe it or not, like Tesla service is here at my office to fix this little thing on my car. And it's like, yeah, they came, but it's just like amazing company. It's like this guy's texting me and I said, well, I'm doing a show on Tesla right now. So, I can't do this right, this second. And he said, oh, no problem. I can get started because I can get in your car with my computer and I'll get it fixed. It's just like, what company is like this?
It's perfect. I agree.
It's just like, and this is what I'm saying. We can talk till we're blue in the face about all these things. And I love Elon and what he's built. And there are these things they can do to make the company better. But I get where he's coming from, where they've done such a great job with innovation and success and marketing and so many fans like us talking about Tesla for 2 hours, on YouTube and all the amazing shows just on Tesla. And I think that's where he's coming from. He's like, I've built a marketing system that is unlike anything else. And Gary's right. The product and the service speaks for itself, and that should be good enough. And I totally get where he's coming from, and I don't fault him for that. I just happen to come from a world where I believe in using all the resources available to succeed. And if you have these resources, why wouldn't you use them? And so that
brings me to my question, why I actually wanted to set this all up. So my question is, we're all convinced about Tesla. None of your two prospectus of your two funds prevent you from having up to 25% of Tesla. Why don't you? And I mean, I know Gary goes further than Ross was caught up, and Farzad, maybe you want to put up those two portfolios. Sure. But that was the one thing I wanted to make sure I asked today.
Because if you get up to about 25%, people say it's not a portfolio. People will say, it'd be like, I have these.
Who people?
People on Twitter. Okay. People who are institutional investors, they will say that's not a portfolio when you have 25% of your name or your portfolio in one name. So I struggle with.
Although Ron Barron has that,
Yeah, I get it. But I struggle with, on a day like today, what if you're wrong? What if and I should have seen all the signs that the China demand issue was there at the end of the quarter. I just didn't do anything about it. And so when you're wrong and you take 100 basis point hit to performance, it affects your flows. It affects your fund. And you may say, no, it doesn't affect me. We're smaller than you. You have a wealth management.
No, it's not that it doesn't affect me.
So it puts your business at risk, I guess I would say, if you're wrong.
Well, it also puts your business at potentially huge success too, if you're right.
Maybe. I just don't know people who think having 25% in one name, other than Ron, and he's done it through appreciation.
It's all appreciation.
It's not because he kept adding to it. I just think that's a hard business proposition for somebody just trying to start out. And look, we just got done with our best quarter. I told Ross this. We were 4th percentile for the third quarter. That's the best from a Morningstar rank. That's great. That'll allow us to get flows. And look, could it have been better? Yeah, but we got off to a really bad start to the fourth quarter where we lost 100 basis points in one day. So it's risk management.
So I think what Gary said first was exactly why it's not 25% of my portfolio, because I'm up on the day. And Tesla's my largest holding, but I manage a portfolio. And I have to have some level of diversification. And so there's this roaring rebound market today, and I'm still up on the day. Now, I don't worry about as much compared to a benchmark kind of thing as Gary, because
you don't worry about benchmark. I didn't say that.
No, I mean, I'm just saying you're like, oh, we lost 100 basis points of performance to the index because Tesla's down today.
Well, I lost 100 basis points, period.
100 basis points, period. Whatever you want to call it, it's 100 basis points. But, I would argue it goes the other way too when Tesla's rallying and the stock market's not. But we manage portfolios. And I think once you get over 10% of a stock in a portfolio, it becomes kind of what Gary's saying. It's not as much a portfolio anymore. It's more like it's Tesla with some stocks. And, and we were just talking about, hey, maybe we start a fund that's like Tesla with some stocks and then we'll short other stocks or,
Wait. The two of you called each other, hey, baby? That's the news of the day.
Baby.
Hey, baby.
He didn't
Hey,
call me
baby.
Trust me.
Yeah, Gary's not my baby. He's a Chicago guy. He would have whacked me up on that. He's not an LA guy. Thank God,
Hey, baby.
No, so like if you think
That's too funny.
that I'm adding much value from a portfolio perspective, having such a concentrated investment in Tesla, essentially I'm just like the Tesla guy. You know what I mean? And so I do believe in portfolio management, and I think our portfolio is performing exactly why we have a portfolio today. Because if I had 25% in Tesla, I would be down on the day. You see what I'm saying? And it's an up day last time I checked. And so I'm happy with my portfolio right now because I got whacked on my top holding and I'm still up, let's say almost 1%. So, and
today is a good example for that. I agree.
Exactly.
Let's pull up the other EV makers, please, Fazal. I sent you that this morning, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I'm sorry I make you do all this gymnastics.
No,
but I
please.
just would like the last couple of minutes we have your opinion on the other EV makers you have in there, which obviously have some weight, by far not as much weight as Tesla, and I think it's interesting for the public to see those.
Yeah,
this is one you sent me on the DM, Alexandra, or did
I sent you on the DM
somewhere
at the
else?
last minute. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's please. I'll get it.
And it has all four lines. It has also the ARC Q, which has some other EV makers and the Vicar. Okay. Thank you.
All right, here we go.
There we go. Aren't they always beautiful, my little tables? So the two of yours are in the middle. Gary's Black in the second, having 12.8 in Tesla and 2.7 for the others, only in BYD and Rivian. And GK, much less in BYD, but Rivian, but the biggest position being Polestar.
Yes.
So tell us a bit about that. And you're no Archimoto anymore, which I think was a good decision given where it's going.
Archimoto management kind of failed so far. Maybe they'll turn around.
Well, can I start?
Oh, go ahead.
So we like Rivian because Rivian is playing in 60% of the business with their CUVs and their pickup truck. So that's 60% of the market. They also have about 3 years of cash. So they don't need to go to the markets anytime. So they could burn off $6 billion a year.
Yeah, it's like 18 billion, right?
Yeah, they'll be fine. And so we like that. And people love their products. If you talk to consumers, people who own Rivians really love Rivians. And
it's probably one of the best brands I've seen built in a long time.
Yeah, there's I've talked to 2 or 3 people. They just love it. They love their product. BYD is more interesting to me. Their strategy is to really come up with a low-cost, high-quality vehicle in China, and they'll export it out of China. But it's very different from a Tesla strategy because it's not premium, although the cars look premium, and they're trying to play in every single segment. And the one negative Ross and I were talking about is Buffett's been selling it because he built a huge position years ago, and now he's been trimming it back because it's up so much. So we like both of those, but we don't really like any of the other Chinese manufacturers. We could talk about Polestar separate. We don't like Lucid because Lucid, unlike Rivian, plays in about 8% of the market. They play in the large luxury sedan part of the market.
It's really competitive.
And unlike Rivian, they don't have a lot of cash. They have about a half year cash. They're going to have to go back to the market this year. So
they can't make cars. I mean, they're not making cars.
They've had a hard time getting to even 15,000 cars a year. I think Rivian's goal is still 15 to 20.
Rivian's making trucks, and I'm seeing the trucks, and they're out.
So that's my 2 cents on Rivian and BYD. They're nowhere near what the Tesla position is.
You don't have Ford on this list.
I don't consider
not yet, but I have GM for Mark.
I mean, I consider Ford a better EV player than GM, but that's my head.
Yeah, I'd rather own both.
I'll put Ford in there.
I'd rather own none of the three. But
We don't own
Yeah.
any of them. We're not going to own any.
But I'm just saying, if you have a list of EV makers, I think that the
Yeah.
Lightning F-150 and the Mach-E
But I
are
don't think anybody has anything in Fold, right? I didn't.
No. No, and I don't own Neo or Zeping because I just have no like extra knowledge that anybody else would otherwise
Talk
have.
about Polestar, 'cause you're
Polestar I know very, very well. You know, Polestar
Tell us.
is a really interesting company because it's basically Volvo, and Volvo decided to make EVs, and they're going to make Volvo EVs. And Volvo's brand is like sort of like super safe car for your driving your kids around. And you know, the top designers and people at Volvo wanted to do a new brand for a Tesla-like company, and then instead of like trying to start from scratch, they're like, let's just copy Tesla. And so it's owned by Geely, which is a Chinese company, bought Volvo. So they've got the supply chain down, and that's one of the big things about Polestar is they're on track to doing 50,000 cars globally this year, which is much higher than many of the other EV makers. So they're actually making a lot of cars relative to other players right now.
With demand.
They have demand. They've sold every one of the cars. They're in 3 markets. They're in their home market in China and Europe. So remember, China and Europe takes about 60% or more of their cars. And then what really attracts me to them is the fact that they have the Volvo service centers and sales centers to lean on. And they're very good at making cars, the quality of the build of the car. And they're using technology similar to Tesla. It's an app-based direct sales type program. They're dropping their SUV on October 12th in Denmark. They're going to do a release, and it's going to be in production sometime next year, early next year. But the Polestar 2 and 3 are very attractive, good EVs. And they're going to be working on an autonomous system, LiDAR-based system with Google software for their solution. So it really looks like a different version of Tesla, but run by Swedes with a completely different vibe, but with the same goal of sustainability, wonderful design of cars, and good execution. So I like Polestar, and they're doing well, and the stock's super cheap relative.
Why did they go with a brand new brand, Polestar, rather than use an existing brand everybody knows?
Volvo,
which to your point means safe. Why wouldn't they just use the
because
Volvo brand?
it's like safe and like mama car. Yeah. My wife loves Volvo. You know, it's like
Mama car. Come on, stop insulting mamas. Okay.
no, it's not that. It's just drive your kids around a Volvo. It's a Volvo.
Wouldn't that have been an easier sell that if it's a Volvo EV that you could?
I agree with you, and especially then Polestar. I mean, Polestar is the opposite of Mama, right?
Yeah, it's a brand new brand because they wanted it to be cool. They wanted it to be like Tesla. Yeah, from scratch.
From scratch, which is really
it's hard. It's really hard. That's
so,
right.
Do you think women will buy a Polestar?
I don't think that's per se their market. I think the SUV they will.
With a name like Polestar.
Which one of these would you rank closest to Tesla from a
Dirt
I
a
don't
little
know. My
bit?
mind's in the dirt.
That's what my friend Meet Kevin says.
It's hard to figure out why they would start a brand new brand, which is so hard to do.
Well, I mean,
Instead of using the
Rivian
brand,
is a
which-
brand new brand.
That's true. That's true.
I think all EVs are brand new. So here's my argument of this. Young people love new brands. They're not wedded to old brands.
Okay, that's
Young
fair.
people don't want a General Motors car.
That's true.
There's just no love. So there is something to this. Now I'm working with Polestar on how they can brand better and build a cool brand in America, which is super hard to do. And they're actually in the process of they have a marketing and PR team, by the way. So it's like all the things that Tesla frustrates me about, you don't have with Polestar, but you have a very similar business model and good execution so far. So once again, if I can buy a company that's trading at like, I don't know, 12 or $13 billion on track for 50,000 cars this year and doubling it next year, you know, it's a really reasonable valuation for, I think, what you're getting.
Did you hear Alexander? He said my mind is in the gutter because I said
Yeah. Mine as well. Let's meet in the gutter.
We talked
That's okay.
about this robot issue we already had, and it's not the first person who said
Be careful.
negative connotation to a popular type of
I think it's
drinking
I think it's a
establishment.
challenge.
No. Let's set this right. This was because Fawcett and you, Ross, agreed that 50% of the bot business is going to be sex related.
No, that's not what we said.
I never said that.
Start at the beginning.
I never said that.
Yes, you did.
Don't you put that evil on me. I never said that.
In fact, what I said was that I don't think it would be good for that, is what I said. And that humans are much better. And remember what I said, why? It's because bots.
No. We're not going there. No.
Yeah.
You're
characterizing
Jeffrey Dahmer Netflix thing.
I did it again. Oh my God.
Minutes of that, it was too scary for me.
Was terrible.
It was scary, man. I could not watch that show. That said, what was we were saying? What would be the most requested features of the bot? And you asked me if I would retweet this. And I said, if I do that, probably from my followers, we would get a vast majority of sexual comments. That was what we were talking about. Because
no. Oh, get this right. Let's get this straight.
Certainly among men. The first thing that I'm thinking is the wrong thing, with a robot.
My big mouth will get me in trouble, but let's get this straight. I said, we were talking first about guitar playing, right? And you said, oh, no robot will ever get anything out of the guitar like I can do with my fingers, right? And then I don't know, thanks to Father, we got to sex. And I was like, okay, Ross is going to bring the finger comment again.
I don't know. Do you remember that?
I have good fingers. I mean, I just
there you go.
work. I mean, you should see these. I can really fret quite quickly.
Well, so this is being taken down by YouTube, but we're off air now. I'm just kidding.
Exactly. So you all see how we prepare these shows.
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to go into sex too much because it's like, I don't know, like people have this weird taboo about it. I don't know. It's America. In Europe, you don't have that problem.
That's true. That's true. That's why people always think I'm weird.
Let me just ask one quick question, if I could. On this breakdown, does investment grade change these numbers at all on the left here for y'all? Does that make an impact at all for Tesla? Yeah,
I think it's the most irrelevant thing. Like, who cares?
I think it becomes more like a blue chip stock. You're going to have a lot of institutions who don't look at it now because they think it has too much debt, even though it's Ross or they have no debt, and they think if it's risky. So I think it changes.
They don't have Bloomberg terminal, and they can't.
They do, but people perceive it as not a blue chip stock.
I agree.
It's going to change so that people will actually look at it. They're not going to look at it like Apple or Microsoft. They're going to look at it much differently once it's investment.
If you're investment grade, it's a legitimate stamp of approval or whatever.
It will become a FANG, whatever it is.
Well, they got to hire Moody's. They got to pay them. Isn't that how it works?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people say that. Borrow some money and then go buy some stock, and they'd probably get an investment grade.
Yeah, that's what Apple did.
That's exactly it.
Maybe they should.
That's exactly what Apple did.
I'm not opposed to that.
Well, I mean, I think we should sit it out. We should sit it out until after the 19th, because there is a good chance S&P will just upgrade at the end of that week. And the funny thing is, I told that yesterday on Twitter. I won't even be there. I'll be sitting in an airplane that day, but it doesn't matter. So you'll all let me know when it's upgraded. But if that doesn't happen, I think we really should do a push to Tesla management, asking them to do a bond issuance, because that's just going to do it. And it's in the best interest of us all that it just gets into investment grade.
Yeah, I don't think they want any more debt, though.
And they won't want to pay bond rating agencies to rate their debt.
Yeah, that's how you get the upgrade.
They won't want to pay it.
I just don't think I get Gary saying, and I think he's right, but I just don't think anybody cares about that at Tesla that much. Maybe Zach, but
I don't know. Certainly not Elon, that's for sure.
They won't own it because it's junk.
I
don't know how many.
That's right.
But there's a bunch.
That's right. But I mean, it's in that,
so
you kind of have to own it.
Not that you have to be an indexer. You're not. We're not.
No, I know, but so many firms are indexers. Come on.
Any questions from the public, Father, that you wanted to bring forward?
Anyway,
there were quite a few coming through here. There was a question about investment grade, which is the one that I shot out there just to put it in front of you. There was nothing immediate in the chat that I can bring up, because we have actually covered a lot of the stuff we were covering. People were asking, and then it just naturally flowed into the conversation. Was there anything that you saw, Alexandra, that you wanted to bring up? From my end, there was a lot.
No,
there was a lot that was
quite amusing. I have the feeling they all had a good time.
Yeah, it was amusing. It was very informational for sure. I mean, I really want to. I mean, for me, I felt like I felt like I was a viewer watching y'all just kind of go back and forth and really sharing your ideas. So for me, it was incredibly valuable, and I think the folks in the chat and viewing at home also felt the same. I think
I feel very fortunate to have these two wonderful very intelligent people to debate with over these issues.
Likewise.
Because, honestly, that's my favorite thing about Tesla a lot is a lot of the people I get to interact with are just wonderfully passionate, intelligent people. And this was a great show today. Super appreciate. I don't know how this happened. It was one of you
Alexandra.
guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the thanks goes to Alexandra. I mean, she's the one that really.
I want to thank you too. You help us out. You follow us. You give us, lots of love, and we appreciate it greatly, and all your
She's the
work.
glue.
Yeah, all your work. But I think for viewers, I think this is why I think YouTube is so successful is because, we're really trying to put out content that's valuable to people versus I think a lot of media organizations today are really just trying to sell ads one way or another. And then the content sort of gets trampled on, like what we've seen at CNN over the last couple of years. And then you lose like, what do I really need to know? What's important? And I thought today was great. So, and thanks,
Good.
Gary.
Yeah.
For
I loved
coming
it
out, too. I mean, I feel pretty lucky today.
How
because-
long are you in California for, Gary?
Just a day.
Yeah.
Russ and I are
Well,
talking.
thanks for coming out.
Yeah. I don't know why anybody would live in Chicago, to be honest.
I'll tell you something. Last night I got to LAX. There's no cabs. You got to take a bus. to
That's
get to the
horrible.
cab.
It's horrible. Yeah, I know.
It's like,
I know.
We'll get you to a private plane, Gary. We'll get you there. We'll get you there. All right.
Yeah, I really do want to
Thank you
thank
very
everybody.
much.
Yeah, well, I want to thank everybody on the panel. Thank you, Gary, again for willing to come back on the channel multiple times. Thank you, Ross, for coming on. I guess
Never invited me on. I had to get
Yeah,
Alexandra to sneak me in.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I can't tell you how thankful I am that I'm able to speak to all three of you together. And I think having this group dynamic is also really cool because again, that debate factor I think is something that's cool to have in the Tesla community because what I see is that there is a lot of really really good ideas within the community itself that are sort of all in different sides of the spectrum, and then getting those together in one room to really hash them out, I think creates a lot of value for people to listen to, like you said, Ross, because it really I think it tests the thesis of many, and there's so much value from just having those theses just tested and seeing what comes out of it. So I really want to appreciate everybody on the panel. Seriously, this was also on your channel, I believe, Ross, as well. It was multicasted to your Twitter account as well. Do you want to plug any of your channels from both of you, Ross and Gary? Make sure we get them out there.
The only thing I want to plug is Gary's fund, Future Fund, my fund, GK. What great diversification! You can buy two funds that are almost very similar, and then put the rest in bonds, and you're in good shape for the next 10 years.
yeah, FFND, traded on New York Stock Exchange. And it had great
Awesome.
performance last quarter.
Alexander,
But
anything from your end?
Future, isn't it, Gary?
It is about the future.
Yeah.
Today was not good, but hopefully we're looking forward and we got a lot of good catalysts coming. So
Awesome. Alexander, anything from your end?
No, I have nothing to sell other than my smiles and my laughs. So thank you for taking that. And looking forward to having you back soon because Q3 will come, rating upgrade will come, so many new things will come. I mean, the good thing about Tesla is we can talk any day and every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always something.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then we'll be I know on my channel I'll be doing the Q3 earnings. I think Alexandra, you'll be there. I think Gary, you may be able to join us towards the end there. Ross, you're more than welcome to join us as well if you're available. We're doing like a
That's going to be great
multi-person.
on the 19th.
It's going to be so fun. We're just going to like live stream and watch earnings come out live, and we're going
Yeah,
to
it's funny
analyze
you
it.
brought that up,
Yeah.
'cause I was thinking about doing a different type of show for Tesla earnings, so maybe I'll just jump on yours. I don't know. Well,
Yeah, and
cool.
I will try to do the calculations to see, how close we're getting to the rating. So I'll try to do that live that afternoon.
yeah, you keep harassing
Yeah.
them. Keep harassing them.
Yeah.
Oh, I will. And they're no better Karen than me.
You rattled them. I was impressed. You rattled them up. I like it.
I did.
That's
I
amazing.
did.
Thank you guys so
Okay,
much.
then.
Seriously, this was quite an honor. And thank you everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And we'll see you on the next one. All right, everybody.
guys.
We're going to end broadcast. Thank you all.